Wonderful. The program keeps rolling on. So let's introduce yourselves a little bit. Tell us about your firm and what role do you see AI playing right now, and then we'll have some questions.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So thank you for having me here. Fantastic talk before this by Ramesh. I'm an operating partner at Apollo. I do two things at Apollo. I help underwrite our deals, particularly at the back of value that we will create from AI or broadly digitization. And second, I co-lead AI strategy for Apollo. Apollo is a close to $900 billion under management, and we invest in credit structures as well as equity.
That's great. Hey, everybody, I'm Drake Pruitt. I work for Clearhaven Partners. We're based in Boston. We're generally at the other end of the spectrum from Apollo in that we have $1 billion under management, and we buy lower middle market SaaS companies. I'm an operating partner, just finished a 5-year tenure at Amazon. My focus at Clearhaven, we're very hands-on, so I work actively with our portfolio companies on product innovation and the adoption of AI technologies, both as a way of growing top-line revenue and helping the value creation thesis play out.
So many different, Vikram, so many different use cases for all your portfolio companies, different industries, different holding periods, different maturity levels, how do you think about which ones to focus on? Do you focus on a certain area? Do you find a killer use case? Do you have early in the holding cycle?
It's a great question. And I think the backdrop before this was very helpful. There's lots going on in the market, lots of uncertainty. Things are not settled, whether it is protocols or reference architectures or what have you. But at the same time, there's lots of value to be created. But at the same time, as we are investing in the new companies, we want to make sure that we're not buying assets that we will be stuck with if that 18-month window comes true. You have to be very careful about it. So what we have done is, when we are investing, we have created a very systematic diligence playbook. And every sort of investment that we make, we go through what we call the AI diligence. It's included in the investment committee memo, et cetera, et cetera. And we evaluate 4 things: impact on revenue, impact on cost, pace of change, readiness of the target to adopt AI, and 5th one actually, which is a little bit softer one, which is regulations, how regulations are impacting the industry, because in some industries, regulations are becoming more kind of prevalent. So that's on when we are buying. When we are creating value, it is very tightly linked to the thesis. The thesis results into value creation plan, which is sort of the standard that we use in our industry. Value creation plan is nothing but here are the 5 ways we will make sure that our investment numbers are met, and that gets translated into can AI help achieve or accelerate this? And the window is 18 months to 24 months. Can we really achieve it? And around that, what we've done is, a bunch of us have experience pre-ChatGPT building AI platforms. I joke around, by the way, that there's 2 types of talent: pre-ChatGPT and post-ChatGPT. Some of us have been, burnt by or have scars in this area. So we've narrowed down on 5 or 6 areas where real value can be created, and we match the value creation plan and those 6 areas and say, how can we quickly get here? And then we've kind of chosen a set of technologies that we will go after and go deploy. That's the kind of process.
So on the value creation, it's a little more customized, maybe cost savings in one, revenue in the other?
Well, it's far more granular than that.
Okay.
Which is, for example, we're going to say that, okay, we will automate a publishing process for a textbook publishing company that we own. And by the way, there's a very clear number, how much we can achieve, and what will we get out of it. That's sort of one side of it. The second is, for example, there's growth. We're gonna instead of going through a value-added reseller, we're gonna go direct to consumer, and through that direct to consumer, we're gonna achieve X% growth, whatever that growth is. Then can we use agentic systems to drive that growth direct to consumer, and how much? So it's very kind of measured in terms of strategies.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Drake, similar approach or different, or?
I would say very much. I think at our scale, and because we're focused exclusively on software, we are, and the scale of the companies that we buy, we're very, very rigorous about pre-deal diligence around talent. We are, like Vikram said, assessing for risk. Some of these markets are esoteric or niche oriented, and so we're looking for areas where, frankly, there's some defensibility against AI in terms of risk management on the front end, as well as the ability to exploit AI as an advantage. So an example would be companies that have system of record data or first-party data plus an inherent sort of stickiness to how they deploy their products. So, and we've run some experiments where we sort of ask the question, could we disrupt this business with AI? And could we actually prompt Claude and do some light-duty product planning and ask, could AI build and replicate the business in a short order? And it's really interesting how companies that particularly federate data from diverse sources, where there are significant challenges with API integration, these are companies that serve niche industries, and they're very hard to disintermediate. Frankly, their threat from the outside with AI is far lower than it might appear. So we take a deep dive during that phase, and then once we acquire the companies, we are, of course, at our stage, we're often professionalizing and raising the talent levels within the business. That's why those of us on the operating team as well, we all come from operating backgrounds, having worked in private equity businesses. So I work closely with an operating partner who has been a seated head of engineering building a large-scale AI implementation. So we're not talking to the companies in sort of theoretical terms. Some of them probably wish that we were, because we're very, very into the details, and frankly, confer with them and collaborate with them extensively. So, and I think long-term, we're bullish on the impact that AI can have. I think right now, if you'd ask the question, most of the lift that we're looking for is efficiency, cost cutting, and the application of AI to prove out the value of the technology and get the teams familiar with the technology. And it's harder because often the value creation plans do not rely on speculative upside growth and incremental investment. We're more cautious about the idea that AI is going to sort of create a J-curve of growth until we see more proof points.
We've had a lot of conversations both with public investors and private investors about what an AI-first company is. Should it command a premium in a particular sector? So if there's 15 insurance companies, which ones are more AI-first? And is it a 5 or 15% valuation premium? Do you buy into that thesis? Is there such a thing as an AI-first company, and does it earn a valuation premium? Yeah.
Well, I would say just briefly, there are sort of benchmarks used in the PE world. They're referred to terms like rule of 40, where you're looking at the combination of margins and growth rate. And now with AI, companies are talking about, both on the buy-sell side, rule of 60. Where are you getting the extra incremental 20%? It's that there's a high impact value to AI for the business that would change the growth trajectory. I'd say in general, companies that are native and familiar with the technology are extremely powerful if they have customers and they are currently operating in businesses that we would tend to buy. I think we're a little more circumspect about pure startup disruption because I think they have oftentimes the unencumbrance of customers that allows them to think outside the box. But the problem is they don't have regular access and interaction with customers and all the friction that sits inside a customer environment.
If I recall, just for the audience, the rule of 40 is 40% growth and 40% EBITDA margin?
It's a combination. It's a combination of the margin plus the growth rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And 60 is aspirational? Do we have any 60 examples out there?
I don't know if it's aspirational. I think you're starting to see companies that actually, at exit, are asking, is this a rule of 60 company? Like a buyer is actually actively canvassing for that right now. So.
Yeah, there are rule of 60 companies. But I'm not sure if they're all coming at the back of AI. AI, as Drake was mentioning, it's like it's adding a little sliver to it, but it's not AI first. And particularly in the private markets, there's no, I mean, we are big fans of benchmarks, and when we are underwriting that on behalf of our investors. So we got to make sure that our investment thesis has some basis. And there's just not enough AI first companies to go and value these companies. So a lot of it becomes, more seed stage.
2 data points, yeah.
Yeah, seed stage or early stage kind of investments.
And if I'd add, not many of them are for sale. If that's actually the business trajectory that you're on, you're probably not in market looking to exit yet.
One recurring theme, certainly in the hallway conversations and earlier conversations, is this change management. This technology's happening so fast, trying to get my company to move faster here. You guys are buy a company here, you've got a short period, you've got a thesis value, you've got a 2 or 3 year. How do you guys think about, is the change management challenge any different in a PE-owned firm?
Yeah, I mean, look, sorry, Drake.
No, please.
Yeah. Look, it's no different than any other technology or any big transformation that you want to drive. The key here is really it starts with the CEO. You've got to make sure that the CEO is bought in. I've had many conversations where, some of the CEOs sat me down and said, son, I've been in this industry for 3 more decades than you have. So I've seen many technologies come by, and the business has not really changed too much. So why do I need to do this? And my conversation with them is, let's say that 99% you're right, but 1% you're wrong. I'm in the industry of protecting the downside, and I want you to invest that 1% of your revenue on this technology. So it starts there. The second big piece is that you really have to build the scaffolding around it. The role that Drake and I play in many of these companies is to see the end, work backwards and say, here's the scaffolding that you're going to need. And it's a very big talent game. It's not a technology game. Technology is important, but talent, do you really have the talent? And how do you really, beg, borrow, steal that talent from outside or inside and make sure that you have that focused kind of, team that is working on it? And then finally, I think it's a 2-speed engine. While you get excited about betting on growth, which is great, but there's so much opportunity to also deliver on cost side that you have to run both so that you are putting some runs on the scoreboard while you are constantly putting new products out and testing, because the speed at which that you can put out is unfathomable. And ultimately, I keep telling my management teams and my CEOs that speed is the only moat. There's nothing else, we were talking about disintermediation of big businesses like Uber and others. Speed is the only moat.
I think that's great, and I can add that. So at one end of the spectrum, the CEOs that are reluctant and have been there and a long tenure, been there, seen that, done that. It's a hype cycle concern, change management sort of building up behind that. We also see the opposite, which is the overzealous CEO who says, I have big visions for AI. I'm sold on AI, and there are 2 things that can be perjurious or injurious if following that thread. One is that the CEO is taking the eye of the core operations team off the ball on hitting the marks on cash flow and revenue and operational efficiencies. And again, PE is always very focused on cost takeout and performance against plan, and we kind of view those as sacred. The second is that as a result of thinking that way, quite literally, sometimes it's a close, or it's easy to fall into the trap of, I want AI at all costs. And the problem or the unanswered question is, for what reason that relates to your customer do you want to do that? So we spend a lot of time in those instances talking to the CEOs about be ruthless and excited about what you can do for your customer based on how to grow the business, and look at AI as a roster or one of a roster of technologies for getting there. But you'll hear the directives from time to time. I told my company, go get me an AI product. And I could say the failure rate on that is near 100%. It might be a POC for learning something, but we won't invest behind that type of thinking. So
That's great. We'll take one or two questions if we get the microphones ready here. So change management, recurring theme today here. A lot also recurring theme thoughts about is sustained competitive advantage being changed by AI or not? Do you guys see certain industries where it's changing it when you're looking at? Do you have certain portfolio companies' assets are values going down because of AI, or the basics of competition really haven't changed?
I would say that there are certain businesses where, from the outside in, we will look at them and say, at some level, the business exists as an information intermediary. And those are businesses that concern us from a risk perspective. Because effectively a model and the right domain of data could disintermediate the entire workflow. So when I was at Amazon, I saw this with certain ed tech companies where they were essentially a repackager and remarketer of information generally available, like Khan Academy on YouTube, now made consumable for the classrooms at MIT at a high cost, multi-million-dollar annual subscriptions. That's a very high-risk business because the information is generally available. AI can do a great job of packaging and multi-formatting the output, and the costs are in dollars, tens of dollars per session, not millions annually. So.
And I'll just do a counter to that.
Okay.
Since we're talking to the ed tech, right?
Yeah.
The counter to that is it can also be a big differentiation, because if you're a large ed tech company, you own the distribution channel. And it's hard to build distribution channel. So if you play smart, you own the front end, and if you can make the back end as efficient as Drake mentioned, then sort of, you become the rule of 60 company much faster.
That's great. That's some questions from the audience.
Hey, just a question for Drake.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were just talking about customer success. I think you were saying that you were leaning into the value of all this about being that silly customer. Because there's a lot of operations and things we're talking about. Are you a proponent of leading AI with customer success?
We do believe a lot in the value of AI for helping you do a better job of connecting with your customers through multiple channels. And I think the early experiments we've run, we've seen, I think quite satisfactory returns and changes to things like NPS scores, et cetera. But you have to be very, very vigilant with human in the loop to maintain the quality control. And you have to be very mindful of training your customer about the limits of what your AI can do, because you can frustrate them by adding too much to the plate that the bot cannot handle, frankly.
Great. One more question? Again, thank you.
Yeah, I'm a longtime software CEO, and I appreciate you talking about CEOs' perspectives, but I'm curious what you're hearing from your CFOs related to AI.
CFO, you said.
CFOs.
Vikram, you want to go ahead?
I will give you a real story, which is one of the portfolio company CFOs called me and said, hey, I see for the next year's budget, I see $40 million in AI projects. What is this? I said, well, do they have charter and business case at the back of it? He said, no, most of them say Vikram said so. So, bottom line is CFOs are eager, but they are doing their job in terms of being, fiduciary responsible and making sure that, they're putting it through the rigor. Now, some of the more strategic CFOs are willing to make the investment, and they're also encouraging the business units and saying, if you're saying the way this works, in current year, you should be able to take X cost out. I won't take all that away from you. I will let you invest half of it.
Great.
Yeah, Paul, can I
Yeah,
add
go
just
ahead,
really
please, yeah.
quickly? The other big hot button for a CFO is how the use of Gen AI in products, particularly in software, points to the change to a value-based pricing model, right? So you're gonna pay me for the outcome, but I am running a business where I'm charging you per seat, traditionally in SaaS, right? And CFOs are looking ahead, good ones are, and saying, this is gonna be a painful transition. We have ambiguity around pricing, margin, usage, and we run a business with PE owners who expect performance against the financial plan, that's all based on a seat license or similar subscription model. So that transition for CFOs and for the whole company is non-trivial, and I think it's one of the biggest questions that loom for a lot of technology companies is, how are you going to get through that without trashing your revenue line? You can't just make a cutover and assume that that's all going to work.
On that point, by the way, good CFOs are also keeping an eye on this whole consumption to per seat translation, because lots of technologies are still in the experimental stage. In fact, I don't call a lot of that revenue ARR. I call it ERR, which is experimental recurring revenue, even if they're making it. Right? Companies are making money, but it's kind of, we don't know if it is sticky or not. But the translation from consumption to the per seat model or a per agent model, whatever it is, that math is still not settled. So good CFOs are keeping an eye on it. Another thing that I've done and noticed is that actually CFO's function can benefit a lot from agentic AI. And that technology is here. So some of the kind of more bleeding edge kind of CFOs are willing to use it for their transaction processes or what have you.
Absolutely fantastic. Please help me thank the panelists. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Paul.
Thank you.